Ready? I'd like to call the regular meeting of Cobre Board of Education into session. It is 5 o'clock. Please let the minutes show that all board members are here. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico. This is a symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Entertain a motion for approval of agenda items.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Cordova, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Guadiana.
It was Mr. Molina. Mrs. Murillo at the same.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was Mr. Molina, I'm sorry. I just heard it.
She was doing an impression of it.
Okay. Any corrections to the agenda? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Entertain a motion for approval of March 7th board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Murillo, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Guadiana. Any corrections to the minutes? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Entertain a motion for approval of the minutes of March 21st.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Molina, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Cordova. Any corrections to the minutes? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Mr. President, next item on the agenda is the bond gym presentation. So we are gonna start off with Paul Aguilar. I'm not 100% sure if Chris is on there as well. Rob Price will not be here, but Mr. Bedu has been in contact with him, so he will share information from Mr. Price. So, Mr. Aguilar, are you on?
I am, Superintendent. Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. This is Paul Aguilar with Consolidated School Support Services. We were contracted with the Cobre Consolidated School District to work on developing a 5-year facility master plan. I met with a number of you at your work session, but I wanted to kind of review a few things just so that everyone is understanding the process and to stand for any questions that the board may have. The Public School Capital Outlay Council, through the Public School Facilities Authority, through the PSFA, requires that New Mexico Public School Districts have a facility master plan in place as a prerequisite for eligibility to receive state capital outlay assistance. That's an important component because most school districts don't have the capacity to fund all of their capital outlay needs without some sort of assistance. And the requirement is that that each school district in order to be eligible for that assistance has a 5-year facility master plan in place. So that's the reason that we're in the middle of this process. The other thing that's really important to understand is that many times facility needs within a school district are determined based on many things: on need, obviously, on emotion, on the idea of equity or equality, which are two different things. And so the 5-year facility master plan, especially when it's done by an outside agency or entity, helps identify the needs that the district has independent, although in collaboration with the district, is independent of the district in terms of developing goals and objectives that for the board and the community to consider. And so it provides an opportunity to look ahead, to establish new visions and directions, to understand the web, so to speak, that is involved in the process of funding projects, but also on how we can get things working, and then also to have the knowledge of how the Public School Facilities Authority works and how they establish their priorities. And so we try to address the current needs as well as anticipating and preparing for the future, extending the useful life of buildings and minimizing disruption from unforeseen changes. And as you all know, with this last year, the district has, with the pandemic, the district has had to deal with a number of unforeseen issues. And so trying to ease the school district into a good long-term plan, and also considering the idea that things like the pandemic can come and go as quickly. We never expected them to come and go as quickly as they did, although it hasn't gone yet, but it came pretty quick. And so we want to be able to take into account these items in the facility master plan so we can look forward. So, it's a summary of local action. The plan acts as a continuing reminder of what the community has agreed to accomplish. But also it needs to be considered that it shouldn't be engraved in stone. It can and should be reviewed and updated as conditions change within the community, within the state, and within the nation. We developed the facility master plan with 6 steps. One is we try to capture the big picture of the district. We identify, and that big picture includes demographics, includes employability, includes the ability to tax rates and things of that nature. We identify the educational goals and needs. We do an examination of all of the district facilities and assess their condition. And then we look at what we call develop transformational concepts. This is where we think about, are there different ways to do things than what has been thought of in the past? And is there any ways that we can innovate for success? And then we obviously document the plan, and we ask the board to approve the vision for the Cobre Consolidated Schools. And so there's a number of things that go into developing a plan: facilities assessment, demographic assessment, education specifications, community outreach, and things of that nature, which you've all been familiar with now. And then the district has developed a facilities master plan committee that helps guide our work. And it's the committee that we bounce ideas off and bounce thoughts off so that we can kind of get an idea of what direction we want to go in. And then, of course, we look for board input and direction. Of course, the board sets the policy for the district, and we want to make sure that the board reviews the work of the committee and then provides direction as to what our final priorities should be. And then we take a look, and this is very important, and this goes to part of the conversation and the reason I'm here this evening, is we take a look at the financial resource. We need to really look and conduct an analysis of all of the available resources, both internal and external. We want to make sure that we can maintain your bonding level, which is important. By maintaining bonding level, we also maintain tax rate stability, or we maintain tax rates, which provides stability within the community so that you don't have taxes going up and down, up and down, up and down, but it's a predictable tax assessment that the public can count on year after year. And then, of course, recently, the district, to their credit, passed the SB 9 bond, which was very significant. That does two things. One, it provides money for maintenance and other things, but also provides eligibility for PSFA funding. And it provides a predictable source of income to fund maintenance activity without using your SCG. So that allows you to do some things on the maintenance side, but also allows you to do some things on the instructional side. And then as we try to maintain tax stability, there's an opportunity to use some of your bonding capacity to fund ed tech bonds, which are short-term bonds. And then it's a way for the board to maintain the tax rates until the board decides the right time to submit a general obligation bond to the community. And then PSFA funding can be used for a lot of the projects on the capital improvements plan. There's some new opportunities that have come up online in the last couple of years, systems funding, demolition for unused and dangerous facilities, things of that nature. So there's a wide range of sources of revenue, and part of what we're going to do with the FMP is to take a look at those and see how we can make those work. One of the things, though, as we've looked at your community and as the district, when I say the district community, the different schools, we really believe that the number one long-term priority for the district should be the high school. The district, from the time the high school was built to now, the district has realized a fairly significant decrease in enrollment due to many things. Location in the state, the copper mines, all of those sorts of things. And so we really think that the high school right now is oversized in terms of square footage. It has some good facilities, and it has some facilities that are going to take a lot of money to either bring up to speed or to renovate for a different purpose. And so one of the things that we want to work with is in the FMP is to really work with the district and set the district up for the time and energy that's going to be required to determine the right size of the school and how to achieve the instructional and community priorities. And then, of course, how to fund the project. So, so with that being said, when you think about the high school facility and you think about the way the PSFA works, all school buildings in the state are ranked from 1 to 850 or so in terms of their condition, facility condition, with 1 being the worst, the facility with the worst condition in the state, the school building, and with 850 being the school building that's in the best condition. And so right now, the Cobre High School is ranked a little bit above 100, but after we've conducted our analysis of the facility, we believe that it needs to be and with some work in the PSFA IT systems, we believe that number should be below 100. I know that it's the heart of the community. It's a building that many people hold dear to them, but it is a building that is, or a set of buildings that is in pretty bad shape. It's oversized for what's needed, and I don't know that it really meets the instructional needs of the district at this point in time. And so, that being said, the facility condition is based on a number of things, but primarily it's based on the account of the systems. And when I say systems, I mean the structure, the plumbing, the heating, the cooling, the condition of the parking lots, all of those sorts of things have a certain life to them. And the facility conditions database takes into account these systems, their life cycle, it's called, and where the systems are on the life cycle, and then comes up with what's called the facility condition index, and then it's weighted with more weight being given to critical systems like heating and cooling, space, things of that nature. And then the weighted condition index is developed, and that index is what is at a little bit over 100, but we believe should be under 100 at this point in time. And what's important about the 100 is that the state funds generally provides for those buildings, those districts with buildings that are in the top 100 to apply for assistance in any given year. And so while there are some districts in the past that have been accused of purposely not maintaining the buildings in order to fall into that top 100, we don't believe that's the case, obviously, at the Cobre schools. We believe you have a good, strong maintenance program, but your schools are just old and are going to need renovation. And the reason I'm saying this is if you do things to the facility, like replace a roof, replace all the heating systems, build an addition, things of that nature, then the condition of the overall facility is improved, and that could move you out of the top 100. And the reason I'm bringing this forward now is that one of the priorities that I have been made aware of by many people, by the administration, by board members, by community members, is that there's a desire to build a new wrestling gym on the campus, and there's some value to that. Obviously, the wrestling program is a dynamic program. It's very, very successful, and would like to have a new facility. That's the upside. The downside is that it would probably increase the facility condition of the overall site and move that facility well above 100, making it ineligible for funding in the near future. And when I say near future, in probably the next 5 to 7 years. And so as we think about those things, and as we think about the high school facility itself, we notice that there's standing water underneath the gymnasium. That's a wood floor that can obviously cause some issues. We noticed that there are some pretty old buildings that probably need to be demolished at some point in time. And there's a need to right-size the facility. And so as we were talking about, there's a central core to the facility that I think is very, very strong. The gymnasium holds a lot of memories and is dear to many, many people in the community. And we believe that area could be the core of a new high school, provided, of course, that some studies are done to see how we can mitigate the water issue that seems to be under the campus. There's either some springs under there or an underground river of some sort that we need to try to figure out. But we think that the high school could be sized properly to meet the instructional and community needs of the Cobre School District. We are concerned, though, there's a desire again to build this gymnasium, this wrestling gymnasium, and the site seems to be away from the main campus. And so I think that there's two issues with that. One is that the value and the newness of that building would throw the whole facility out of the top 100, as I've mentioned. But secondly, you would then have a facility away from the main campus that doesn't build school spirit. It's a long way away from other facilities, and it may not be the best idea. Rather, let's figure out a way to bring that gym into the center of the campus, and then build around the gym, and then build a new gym and whatnot. And so none of our recommendations are saying don't build this gym. We just think it needs to be part of the broader plan to build a new high school that's right-sized and meets the needs, the educational needs of the community. And so that being said, bonds are sold for a number of generally specific projects. And I know that there's some people that are saying, well, we passed the bond to build this gymnasium, and there's no question and no argument about that. But I think it's important for the community to know that that in the face of increasing building costs, and they've more than doubled and almost tripled in the last year, it should be expected that not all of the projects that were put on before the community on the bond list in the last bond election will be accomplished within the life of the bond. And so what we're recommending is that, and we expect that those building costs will continue to be particularly high for the next 3 to 5 years. We don't see those coming down at all. I mean, they fell a little bit this last summer, and now they're back up to their high. Lumber is selling at well over $1,700 a 1,000 board feet, which is 3 and 4 times higher than it was prior to the pandemic. So that all being said, Mr. President and members of the board, I think that there are some, after we've evaluated the community in general, not the community, the school community, the schools in general, we believe that you have a limited time to sell bonds, and then you have a limited time to spend money from those bonds. And we believe that the bonds that are the bond dollars that are available from the last bond election, one, are not sufficient to build a wrestling gymnasium that the community is asking for. Two, we believe the timing is probably not right to build that wrestling gymnasium, only because we think that it should be part of the main high school and not be built out and about just to get it built. And thirdly, we believe that there's a need for a gym at Central Elementary, and we believe that there are sufficient dollars to build an elementary school gym. And so that would be a good way to spend the bond dollars so that they're not lost. And then secondly, that we ensure that as we design the new high school, that we design it so that it has an integrated wrestling gym that meets the needs and the desires of the community, and becomes part of the contiguous high school that's right-sized for the community and for the school district. And so those are our recommendations. We have submitted a capital improvement plan for consideration by the board and the administration, and we think we can make it work over the long term. We ask for your consideration. We don't have a dog in the fight in terms of what the priorities of the district are. We're looking at how we can maximize external dollars and maximize the internal dollars that are used, so we can leverage and try to get as many of the desired projects funded over the next 5 years in a manner that is effective for the school district, meets the community needs, and helps the board succeed in the commitments that they've made to the school district. So with that, Mr. President, that's my presentation. I know some of my comments are probably not well received. I appreciate that, but that's my job is to take a look at our job. My brother and I have our company. Our job is to look independently at various things and then try to make the best recommendation that we feel available for the school district to help them achieve their goals and to help the board be successful in the commitments that they've made. So with that, Mr. President, I stand for questions, and I hope that my comments have been helpful.
Any questions?
Yes, sir, real quick. So, in regards to the timeline for the ranking of the schools, right? You're saying we're currently just above the 100. Is that a running list? Is it a living document, or is there a drop dead date where they come out with the rankings? Because it would be unfortunate if we're dependent on those rankings and we hold off on this whatever construction we're doing, and then all of a sudden, lo and behold, we're 120. And then we're under the gun to come up with some use for those funds.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's an excellent question. So the rankings are, it's a living ranking, but it's published annually, and it's published about sometime near the end of November and December. So my brother Chris, in a prior part of his career, was the facilities database manager at the Public School Facilities Authority, and he's had an opportunity to. We have climbed on, over, and around every building in your district. And we believe that the data that's in what's called the Facility Assessment Database is not accurate. And we are working at this, obviously not today, we're probably having beans and chili right now, but we're working as we speak to correct that data in the FAD, to make sure that we have the right data in place. And we believe that by the next ranking in December, that the Cobre High School will be in the top 100. We can't find any reason that it won't be. So I hope that answers your question.
To further answer your question, one of the things that happens also is that the reason it's a living document is because other projects get finished up, so they move the rankings and they start moving schools up. You know, one of the things, if I can just give a little bit of tidbit information, is 18 years ago, we redid the roof, we redid the geothermal, we did the windows on the school. We were sitting right at about 74. After that, we dropped, once we did those projects, we dropped to like 140 something. So that's how far we went down by just trying to correct some of the things and take care of the school the way we should. You know, because one of the things that we pride ourselves in making sure that we have the buildings and the safety of the kids in mind. So we try and do everything we possibly can, you know, for the environment also. But, you know, what happens is it's taking us that long to get back up to where we're at now. You know, if we would have done that, we would have been probably further up the line, but we would have also been negligent in not maintaining the building. So we had to produce the things that we did, and we did the things that we had to in order to be able to do that. So it's taking us that long to get back up into those rankings. And like Mr. Argado said, it comes out annually, and the reason it does that is because, like I say, there's projects going on right now, and as those projects are completed, there's movement along, you know. But what happens is if somebody does, let's say somebody's sitting at 99, and they happen to do the roof on that school, they just dropped. So, you know, you have to pick and choose how you can do that, or how you can band-aid something to take care of it, to be able to make sure that you continue to climb in those rankings. So when you go after the bonds.
Okay, and then just another question, and the reason I'm saying is that, you know, I was one of the constituents that voted for this specifically for the wrestling gym. You know, the wrestling program is pretty close, near and dear to my heart. And so that's something we're gonna have to explain to our constituents on why it's not, you know, and I'm glad you came on and you explained it. Hopefully there's plenty of people online that are listening to your presentation. You said, so there would be, if we go below the 100, we're gonna get a new school built, or renovation at least. You're saying there would be plans for a wrestling gym you know, with that new renovation of new high school, right? That's what we've definitely done.
Yes, sir. So, I mean, obviously the district would build would design a facility with your architects that is designed to meet your needs. This board has obviously committed to a wrestling gym, and it's important to the community. It's important to the board. It's important to the administration. We don't see any problem with having a wrestling gym built as part of the facility. We just think that building it out on the other side of that, I think it's a baseball field or a softball field, it's building a facility away from, you want a school to be a community, and it's building it away from the community. That's the first step. The second thing is, it's at the cost of current building materials, you probably don't have enough money to build it right now, even though you may have when the bond was sold, because material prices have increased so significantly. And then thirdly, we believe that it can be part of, the whole complex, right? You have your big gymnasium, which I think the community would revolt if you try to knock that down. So you want to leave that because it's so dear to everybody. And then you build the wrestling gym, and you already have a a cheerleading, auxiliary gym, you could build a three-way facility as the core of the campus and then build out from there. And your architects could work with you to do that.
Okay.
On some of the preliminary architectural stuff that we had done before, this is some years back, one of the things that we did also was look at seeing that, you know, if we tear down this part of the school, which would be the north and south wing, and then also part of the administration area, we would leave the gymnasium. Now it's on. So, like I was saying, you know, one of the things that we were looking at is on part of the stuff that we visited with the architects was on being able to build that facility right next to our other facility. So we have it set up, you know, like at Hatch, how they have them connected. You know, a lot of those gymnasiums now are connected. So that's what we're looking at. And once we are able to go to sell our bonds and go to construction on the high school, you know, doing everything where everything is be centrally located together, and then everything else will be built around it.
And lastly, sir, I know that you mentioned there was a, and this may not be the forum to do it, but you mentioned that there was a funding possibly for demo of unused dangerous facilities or buildings. I mean, I could think of one right now is the tennis courts. I mean, and maybe later on if we can, I don't know, in special, just get some presentation on how we can secure that funding, that'd be great. Just something to think about on your end is all.
So thank you. I won't take up too much time. Demolition of buildings will be part of the capital improvement plan. The board, and I apologize, I was supposed to send this immediately after the work session, but you'll have a spreadsheet, or if you haven't received it yet, of the capital improvement plan, and we're looking for input from the board. So things of that nature, please jot down there, and we'll take a look at them and make sure that that they're eligible and that's a prudent use of the money as we recommend moving forward.
I have a question. Has there been mostly for George, I guess, or either one of you, but has there been a study or has there been anything said on what it would take to either get rid of that stream from under the gym or cap it or do something else? I know it's been a problem for quite a few years, but what would it take to do it and what expense?
There hasn't been any studies done. What it is, it's a natural spring.
Yeah.
So the more moisture we get, the more rain we get, the more water we get under there. So we have to make sure we have 2 pumps running 24/7, and they're on floats. So we got to check them and maintain them, make sure that they're running, because if not, we'll get 3-4 feet of water in that area right away. So we are constantly maintaining that because they are natural springs. Even now in the dry season, we still get that water coming through, and all that water is pumped into our sewage area. Those pumps are pumping into our sewer. So, but they are natural springs, and there'd be no way to cap it, from what I understand. When I visited with some people, this has probably been about 10, 12 years ago. So they just said, make sure you maintain what you have, because if not, you will ruin everything that's above here. So I mean, but it's a natural spring. Yes, we could pump into it, so we could pump the water out to other areas, but that would be a pretty costly thing to do also. But we haven't done any studies. I mean, maybe we can check into that.
The thing that I was saying is, if we go ahead and we build part of the school over there on that side, and then we continue to have that water, or we have a bunch of more water coming in, and it's going to be more costly to demolish or do something else.
And
Yeah.
I think, Paul, I think that in the work session, you had talked about, the necessity of having a study before we were to move forward on any plans, right?
Yes, Superintendent, that needs to be part, as you do. A lot of people think that because the school's been there forever, that they still know what the site looks like. And so as part of the pre-construction process, we really need to do a site assessment of the spring, of flows, of any number of things that we can work on. So that does have, Superintendent, that does have to be part of the the pre-project planning, so we make sure we make some sound decisions about that.
Thank you.
I have 2 questions.
One thing though, real quick, if, one of the things is once we do some of the things, we have to be really careful also, because, we can fix one problem and then we get another problem. I'll use Central as an example. When we were rebuilding Central, we put in that tank, to collect all the water from up above the west side of Central. Well, now we have an issue, because when we release the water, now we're causing a problem for everybody down below. So what we're doing right now is we just went after some monies through DOT, and it looks like we're gonna be pretty good on that. And then once we get that taken care of, we'll be able to eliminate that problem. You know, we won't have the water coming out the way it does. But that tank, from the very beginning, has been a headache, and it was supposed to be something that take care of the residents in Central, you know, we're in Santa Clara, and now it's just become a headache on another side, you know. So we gotta be really careful when we do certain things, because we're probably creating a headache on something else also.
That's correct, Mr. President. I think that's going to be important that, you know, your architect team has a good civil engineer with them so that they can figure those things out. 'Cause that's a good point. The water is one of the most damaging things you have, and so figuring out how to ameliorate the problem and then get the water off site is going to be an important piece.
So I have two questions. So, when do these bonds have to be spent by? And how was Central chosen as the school? Or that means?
Answer the central question, I mean, or the site, because we had 2 projects in line for that. One of them was building an elementary gym for Central, because that's the only school, the only elementary school does not have a gym. So they are, you know, they bring out the cafeteria tables, they pick them up, and so they're double duty on everything. So that's the only school that didn't have an elementary. So we had a project lined out to be able to build a school, elementary gym there, and we had this project also. You know, but with the increase of funding, I mean, not the increase of funding, the increase of all the material and everything, it's cut us on the money where we don't have the money to do that. You know, so what I'll do is right now, I'll just jump into some of the other things that I was gonna mention in visiting with Rob Price, because one of the things is we don't have the money to complete this project, but it looks like we have the money to complete that project, because it's a much smaller project. So he's doing a cost analysis for us right now, and then later on in the week, we're gonna visit with 2 of the contractors that had come in and talked to us before on being able to build if we need to, because one of the things that, if I'm correct, we have to spend those monies by December of 2022, right, or 23? December 1st, 2022. Yeah, December 1st, 2022. So we don't have a lot of time. So you know.
Spend or obligate?
Spend or obligate. It's gotta be out, right? Yes, it's gotta be encumbered and out. So the reason, and then when I visited with Rob this past week, one of the things that we did is we're making contact with those people that were going to help us with it before, to see if they can we can get them on board already. And if we move on the architect side and we get everything going, that they can be on site as soon as possible, so we can start getting all the dirt work done and all that done. Because one of the things, we still have to get a couple of engineers over there to make sure that we're okay with that site. That site that we're looking at Central is right where the track used to be. And a lot of constituents there are really bummed because they don't have anywhere to walk, they don't have anything to do that. You know, one of the things that I had talked to Rob about, if we did something, and this is when we first started that project over there, is to build the gym, but also put a little small track around the outside, so that they felt comfortable, you know, they could go out and walk. You know, because we're working with Central on a couple other things, the Village of Santa Clara, on being able to build some other things for them to have something on that side for the kids also. You know, they have all the water park, they have all those things, but they have nothing on that side of town. So we're also working with Santa Clara on some projects that we can do on the back part of our property, you know, so that we can do it together in a joint effort.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Would it be too much to ask for maybe
Yes, sir.
getting a cost analysis on that gym?
For the one in Central?
Yeah, prior to a decision, because, I mean, what if, you know, you're just saying building costs are high, right? What if
Yes.
you say, hey, let's build this gym, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we can't.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that we have it all very soon. We were hoping to have it today, but Rob had some other commitments. He had to get some things taken care of on Thursday and Friday. That's why he couldn't be on board with us here. But he said he would have it this week. And then as soon as I get it, we can just email it so you guys have it, and you guys can see it already, and then we can make some decisions so we can move on it quicker. You know, so as soon as I get it, I'll email it out to you all. Okay, and then also with the conversations that I have with the contractors, I'll get that information to you all also.
And I was just wondering, because it was an agenda item, so I was assuming that we're gonna make a decision by
Well,
today.
we couldn't even make the decision to table it till we have
Okay.
information from Rob. Again, when we put this together, it was early on last week, and at that time, we thought we could have him on board, and his plans changed, so we couldn't.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes, we'll get that to you.
I have a question as well. Well, first off, starting out with some of the circumstances that kind of got us in this place was that we didn't reference any facilities master plan in the decisions of what it is we were going to do. And there wasn't an updated one to begin with. But I really appreciate your presentation and the data that you're doing, that you're giving us now. Certainly going forward, we'll make much more educated choices. And understand the significance of the choices we do make.
The question I have is, when are we gonna get the written report? And, in that, before we make an action, we should be able to have substantial time to review and comment, before the final report is approved, before it comes for approval. So that way that can be incorporated into the final plan. The other part too is, one of the issues that remains is the administration building. And if there is excess room or building space here in the high school, can we consider an option of cohabitating the admin building with the high school? And would that be beneficial in terms of the dollar amount?
Is that a question for me, sir?
Yes.
Yeah. So the district can allocate administrative space as they see fit, but Public School Facilities Authority will not participate in funding administrative renovations or things of that nature. So we would have to you have to look at a couple of things. Sometimes excess space is beneficial to be used for those sorts of things. Sometimes it's not. You have to look at traffic. You have to look at how kids are moving around the campus. You don't want to have kids crossing, traffic zones. You have adults that you have to segregate those areas because you have adults that are not members of the school community and don't have background checks and things of that nature that are, coming and going to visit with the administration and do things of that nature. So it can be done. It has to be very thoughtful. I think what I would suggest is to, as we go forward, not in the next few months, but as we go forward and as the district goes forward, think about what the new high school would look like, and then take a look at the buildings, the excess space that the district has, and then see how those can be modified or maybe severed so that they're standalone buildings and they can be accessed differently than the students and staff access and things of that nature. So excess space it's a double-edged sword. It can be very valuable. It can also cause difficulties in controlling access to student areas, which needs to be very thoughtful as well.
If I can just mention, one of the things that we were going to do when we built Central was we looked at moving Central Office in conjunction with Central Elementary, because we have so much property over there. But it came down to, like what Mr. Aguilar is saying, they would not participate in the extra size that we needed to put up over there for the administration offices. So we scrapped the idea because we are not able to commingle those funds. And one of the things, like he's talking about storage, what's hard is PSFA funds a certain amount, but one of the things that we're always short on when we rebuild all these schools is storage. Closet space for like the custodians and things like that. That's one of the things that doesn't get funded. So we struggle with that also. The only school that we're not struggling with that is here at the high school. The custodians have a lot of room.
Ms. Bayard, is there any way, Mr. Sepulveda, can we, we're gonna table this item, correct?
Well, we can table it.
And I don't know if that's what the decision is, but if we do table it, is there any way that, I don't know if we can send a survey out or something, because we're gonna have some time before we make a decision on it, at least get the community's input on it, because they are the ones that voted for it. And it would,
But as Mr. Betty said, both gyms were actually on the original.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so we're good to go.
The flyers and all the information that was dispersed, they were both on there.
Okay, awesome.
And also, Mr. President and members of the board, just for your information, right now there are surveys on the website and have been sent to every email of record for parents and students and whatnot. So we can also use the information that we receive from that, if any, that's directed toward the wrestling gym or other priority items around the district to inform the board in helping them make their decision.
Any other questions? Would the surveys be included in the packet we'll receive? Or a summary?
Well, yes, sir. There'll be a summary of a summary of the surveys is included as part of the facility master plan. If you would like a specific discussion of the surveys in general, we can make ourselves available once we compile all that information to have that discussion with the board. Maybe at a work session or something. But hopefully by Zoom, because that 10-hour round trip is a killer.
Other question? Well, thank you, sir, for all your information, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you, and I apologize, Mr. President and members, I was supposed to send you that spreadsheet in Excel. I will do that as soon as we sign off here. I'll get it to Ms. Holguin, and then she can, or Mr. Peru, and they can forward it to you. But please, we look for your feedback. Construction priorities, community priorities, items for demolition, just general thoughts, so that we can put a good comprehensive package together for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Superintendent.
So, Mr. President, we do have it on the agenda as an action item, but again, you know, we have not been able to hear from Rob Price yet, so I would recommend that maybe we table this item until the following board meeting so that we can get Mr. Price here, give him a chance to put some numbers together for us, and then come and present it at the next board meeting.
You heard the recommendation, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Cordova, second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Murillo. Any questions? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That'll be tabled till the next meeting. Item E.
Mr. President, members of the board, we did have a presentation by David Chavez from CES. He talked a little bit about what a board retreat might look like through CES. Gloria Rendon would be the person that would be in charge of doing the board retreat if that's what we choose, the way that we choose to go. So I'm going to give you a handout. She did send us a proposal. She is online. She's going to do a presentation. Hers is only the top one. The other handouts that you have here, I'll explain them in a little bit, okay?
Thank you.
Ms. Rendon?
Mr. President, members of the board, thank you for inviting me to speak with you this afternoon about what we might do for your board. My understanding is that you would like to participate in some kind of team building activity, some other activity maybe that will assist you in learning more about each other and leadership styles, that sort of thing. My colleague Evan Grasser and I are the directors of the of leadership development for CES. You probably have seen me at many board meetings because we also do the board leadership development program for Joe Guillen. We've been doing this now for about 3 years. Mainly have been working with new superintendents, but I think that some of you board members have also, new board members, but some of you board members have also participated in some of those activities as well. And thank you for doing that, because you always bring in your perspective and give very good advice to new board members. At any rate, what Evan and I have been doing, and we've worked with several districts. We've worked with Cimarron, we've worked with Gadsden, we've worked with Rio Rancho, we've worked with a couple of charter schools. We've done this work for CES staff as well. But it's a very, it's a fun activity that really helps people to learn more about their own style, their communication style, their style in communicating with others, and so on. You know, we have come into meetings where people say, I don't want to be here. This is not what I like to do, and have left at the end of 3.5 hours being really happy and satisfied that they did, because they learned so much about themselves and learn about other members of their organization as well. And it just helps overall to, when you do that, to be able to improve not only relationships, but to understand each other better in your leadership roles. And so, the superintendent asked me to be present tonight in case there were any questions about this. You can see that we've not included any dates there because it really is up to you whether or not you want to do this and when you might want to do it. I will tell you that, Evan and I have quite a few commitments here in the next couple of months. And so, we would like to know if you would like to participate in this. We would like to know a date pretty soon so we can make sure that we have you on the calendar. The name of the activity, the presentation that we do is called Take Flight. And like I said, it doesn't matter whether you do Myers-Briggs or any other sort of assessment. Everybody falls into really 4 different patterns. But what we have found that we like about this particular program is that it really helps you to remember what your style is and what other styles are. And it just makes it fun and easy to remember. And so with that, I'll stand for questions, and superintendent has shared with you the proposal that we usually send out to boards and districts when they ask for some of this work, and I can answer questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Well, first I want to say, Dr. Rendon, I've gone to some of your trainings at the NMSBA conferences, and I really enjoyed them. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
On the proposal, we have just a half-day training. Is that typical? Is that going to be long enough?
We usually have only done a half-day training, yes. I mean, if there's, for this particular activity, obviously if there are other things that you would like for us to do, we certainly can put together pretty much anything that you would like to have us do. You've gotten an idea of some of the things that we've done in the past because you have attended those trainings with NMSBA. If there's something there that you think would be beneficial to you, the members of your board, and you would like to have some expansion on that, we can certainly do that as well.
Okay, thank you.
And I know also with the strategic plan, there would be some other like retreat type activities and work with the board, and then bringing in the administrators to help establish some goals for the district. So some of that would continue in that way.
Okay, thank you.
And again, this could be tailored however you all want to see it.
And my question has to do, I'm kind of confused with Jean, the strategic planning and the team building. They're two separate. Oh,
yes.
good. I didn't want to see this replace
No,
the strategic
they're
planning.
two separate. So, I mean, it'd probably be that we'd start off with this. I am gonna bring up a couple of things in reference to the strategic plan. That we'd start off with this and then roll right into the work with David as far as the strategic plan. And again, the strategic plan would include some time just with the board, but then some time with the administrators. He wants a community meeting as well, so that would be more comprehensive. This might kind of be the way to lead into that work.
I think it's logical to try to address the dynamics of the board before we get into the substantive content.
It's a
Yeah,
lot of work that we have to
I agree with that
accomplish
process.
the strategic plan.
If I may add, I don't know if you've thought about including your leadership team as well, meaning the superintendent, whoever else is in your top posts in your district. As board members, you probably interact quite a bit with them, and so I don't know if you've thought about including them as well in this activity.
I think that would be a good idea. It lists up to 10, right? So,
I know that in the past, we have included the administration and the principals in some of it, especially in an area where we get to goal setting.
And we will. That will still be part, because the goal
Strategic
setting is
plan.
part of the strategic plan. So administrators, all principals will definitely be a part of that.
But in terms of the board dynamics, it probably would be a good idea to have a few of the people that come and make presentations to us routinely participate in this part of the team building.
I think this would be a good start.
Just the board or others?
I think
I
just
think
the board, I think we,
the first one just be the
yeah,
board.
I think we need to probably fix ourselves before we fix anything else, I think. And I think it's a good idea for it to be, and I think maybe yourself, Mrs. Barrera as well too, in the meantime, I guess. But I think it needs to be more intimate. We need to fix ourselves before we go and spread the wealth, so to say. I'm not sure, do you agree with that, man?
Are you addressing the question to me? I'm
Yes, ma'am,
sorry. Just because of the activities, if you have a few more people, it always just makes it that much more interesting and fun for you as well. But, you know, whatever you'd like to do is what we will plan for.
I think that like you, Joyce, and probably, like your staff maybe, at the same time, because there might be some questions that we can't answer by us being there. And I think with you and Ms. Davis and maybe Terry can be there so we can.
And, Mr. Guadiana, who were you referring to a while ago also when you said people that generally present?
Certainly
Who were you-
Terry, George, Victor.
That's pretty much who you were thinking to,
Mm-hmm.
including Ms. Davis?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a limit, Ms. Rendon?
Say that again. I'm
Is there a
sorry.
limit
I'm not
to the number
hearing you
of-
very
to
well.
the number, of participants for this session? Is there a limit to the number of participants for this?
Oh,
session?
no, there is, you know, we've
Okay.
done it with as few as 8 and we've done it with as many as 55.
Okay,
Okay. Do we want to set a date?
so, well, I think, would we want to first, approve that we go forward with CES and Dr. Rendon, and then we can look at a date?
Okay.
I move that we approve a retreat with Dr. Rendon.
You heard the motion, do we hear a second?
Second.
Motion by Murillo, second by Mr. Molina. Any questions?
I've got a question. In other discussions that we have had, it has been stated by you that it is very important that, especially on the retreat part of it for the board, that every board member is there from start to finish. So that's what's gonna, I think, be a thing to discuss on the date.
Yeah,
So that's my understanding, right?
yes. Yes, because it is very important that if we're gonna have a retreat, that all board members are there through the whole thing so that everybody gets the same information.
So, Dr., oh, well, we haven't voted yet, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Any other questions? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
So, Dr. Rendon, you have a calendar, you have your calendar in front of you that we could look at some dates?
I do have my calendar in front of me, but remember that my colleague Evan Grasser is not with us. She had another commitment this evening and could not be present. But if you can give me, you know, a couple of dates at least, I'm sure that we can figure out a way to work around it.
Okay. I guess maybe the first important one would be day of the week, Friday, Saturday, weekday, daytime, evening.
I'd say on a Saturday, and if Ms. Rendon's gonna do a half-day thing, we could start like at noon on a Saturday and go till whatever.
Or start like at 9,
Yeah.
I'd rather start earlier. Like
8 and 9. So are there, a couple of suggested dates? I know we have, Easter Sunday is April 17th, so that
Yep,
weekend probably
yeah.
wouldn't be good.
What about April 9th?
April what?
April 9th,
Ninth.
Saturday, April 9th?
Everybody, and then we'll pick another date as well?
The ninth, I'm not here.
You're not here?
Uh,
And then,
23rd?
the 16th, so yeah, the 23rd would be the
23rd.
next one,
Yeah,
April 23rd,
that's fine.
okay?
16th, 23rd,
So
23rd.
April 23, now let's come up with another one. How about the next one, April 30?
April 23 or 30.
April 30 is okay with everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Dr. Rendon, April 23rd or April 30th, those are both Saturdays,
Okay, April 23rd or the 30th.
yes.
Okay,
And are we good?
all right, we will look at those dates.
9, 10,
Mhm.
11, 12,
9
13,
o'clock's
14. About 9 o'clock?
Yes, let's see, if we go from 9 till about 12:30 or so, yeah, that would work.
Okay. Okay, so just get back to me with the date that works.
Okay, I will be back in touch with you.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Mr. President, before we, move on to calendar and the superintendent search, we do have 2 people here from HMS that don't have a very lengthy presentation. Would we be opposed to moving them up and allowing them to do their presentation at this time? Because I know Mr. Bash's presentation is gonna be, it's gonna be a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Would that be
Yeah,
okay?
that'll be fine.
So we do have Amanda Frost and Anita Gallardo from HMS.
Good evening, board. Thank you for having us. As was mentioned, my name is Amanda Frost. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Hidalgo Medical Services. The school-based health center team that came tonight is the opposite team of what's listed on your agenda, so I apologize for that. We had some sickness and stuff that we've overcome for us to be able to be here. But as I said, I'm Amanda Frost. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at HMS. We wanted to come and introduce ourselves and give a little bit of information about our school-based health center here on campus. And of course, answer any questions if you have any. I brought with me Anita Gallardo. She's a family nurse practitioner at our school-based clinic. She's been working here for a little while and is going to be transitioning down to Lordsburg. We offer medical services and mental health services. We were going to have a mental health therapist with us as well, but she's out with an illness as well, so it's Anita and I tonight. And I'll turn it over to Anita. I know she passed out some pamphlets for you to look at, so I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you for having us here. I came back to HMS in January when a provider was going out, and it's been really fun to get back into HMS again. We see staff members, we see students of both elementary, middle, and high schools. We're at both Cobre and Silver, and then I'm at Lordsburg on Wednesdays. And we have 2 main providers, the ones on the list, Tiffany Maxey, who's a PA, and Megan Novikov, PA. We have a great front office person, Pam Madrid, who will get you in there wherever you need to be, and then our wonderful mental health people. We see a lot of mental health issues. It's been a struggle with COVID. Students have really been challenged by that. And so we're noticing now that as schools have opened up again, our numbers are starting to go back up. We're definitely having, we're getting busy again. We see acute care visits for illness. We do a lot of wellness. We do well exams. We do sports physicals. We do vaccines. And again, both for the staff and the children. A lot of our teenagers come for confidential visits, and that kind of explains some of that on there. So I'll open it up to any questions that you might have.
Question. I have a question. When you
Yes.
say the services that you provide, you mentioned acute care and a few others.
Yes.
Does that include home visits?
So at this point, it does not. Our contract only covers for services in the clinics, and that's the contracts come from the DHS to the New Mexico Department of Health down to us, and so they decide, our contract drives what we can do, and so we don't currently do any home visits. But we can help with some truancy issues. If you have truancy issues that are related possibly to medical, if we can get them in somehow for us to look at them, we can hook them up with our community health workers, with various services that we have. So that's what I would recommend. You just need to have a principal reach out to us, and we'll work on getting them in, or sending a community health worker to contact them. Okay. Yes.
I just want to say, as a staff member who has used the clinic, it is extremely convenient to have the clinic right here in our district. It's really appreciated.
And we will, both Cobre and Silver will have some services over the summer, and so we will also return to full services a couple weeks before school starts. And we'll try to meet with the staff again then, and try to get some of the physicals and vaccines done before school starts, because there's always a rush right when school starts. So we'll do that too. And then if during the summer the students needed confidential visits, they can always go to one of the other HMS clinics to receive those confidentially.
And we should probably have you come to staff convocation when it's the entire district, so that you can just give a little bit of a, like you did today, just
Yes.
what services are available and how you can be a resource to staff, families, and to students.
Wonderful, wonderful. We'd love that. Thank you.
In regards to the confidential visits, like you're saying, in the summertime, if they can't visit the school, you're saying they can go to HMS?
They can.
That is free of cost, correct, or not?
No, it's still a confidential visit, it's still kind of under the contract. It just has to be scheduled as a confidential visit. So we kind of teach the students before they're leaving, for the summer, okay, this is what you need, this is where you're gonna go to get it, this is the number you're gonna call, and then that's how we take care of that.
So it's under contract with the school, so
It
they're not
is.
the families won't incur any costs?
No,
insurance
no.
and stuff?
Yeah, confidential visits are not billed to insurances because they can't then be confidential.
Okay.
So it's part of the contract.
And is there any, and I was looking on your pamphlet, it's really nice. Is there any type of, so I'm a military veteran and retired, and so hotlines are a big thing. And, I've used hotlines as well.
Yeah.
They're a great source because they're confidential. Sometimes people just want to vent and just get whatever is out, right?
Right.
Do you have any hotlines that maybe we can post, or is there anything posted up there at the?
That would be a question that you would answer.
We do have hotlines on our website. We're licensed as a community mental health center through HMS, and so that's a requirement of us to have hotlines available. I know our mental health department has their business size cards that they have at the clinics, any sites, including the school-based clinics, where they can hand those out to anybody that would need them or is interested. I know our therapist sometimes does that as well, as a kind of a crisis planning tool if they need to have that for the student or the staff person that's seeing us. So we can definitely get you some if you want some, but we do have.
In the school, so for example, there's a stigma if you're going to go to the HMS clinic and okay, well, I wonder what they're doing over there. So is there somewhere where they can, or if not, can we make them available just in the school where someone can just grab something and without having to go over there and maintain confidentiality?
So we do. I was just going to say poster. So what you have in your hand is a pamphlet. We made the same kind of topic we made in a poster version. And we wanted to have this conversation with you guys, and then if it was okay, maybe bring some of those posters over to distribute throughout the school to put up. And it's got some of that information on there. Even if they're not sure, like a hotline to call, they can call the school-based clinic, and all that information is on the poster, and they're not having to, like you say, call that way. I will also say one of the benefits of the pandemic has been that we have telehealth services now, which were not very popular before the pandemic started. So we could even offer a student, if they call to the school-based clinic and they maybe don't want to go in, they can always ask for like a televideo visit, and we can still set them up. They just have to have some way of getting in front of a camera, and we can get them in front of our provider, and we can provide a service that way too.
Good.
So.
That's really cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have one question. Your HMS family support, do you have a person here in Cobre who will see families that might need these services?
I could take that one. We do have a family support department, and we have not had one physically housed at the Cobre school-based clinic for a while. The negative of the pandemic has been hiring staff. We have lots of openings in family support right now, and I know once we have some more staff, we usually have somebody that's assigned to come out not full-time, but at least, be present in the district so that if there are those kind of gaps in care needs, they can help with that. So that's the intention. If we do have something now, Anita or any of the other providers can make a referral and they can get them services that way. I don't know if you want to add to that. No, that's okay.
I have a question. If a student has a primary physician in a different clinic other than HMS, do you get information from them or supply them information about something that they may need to address?
Are you asking as far as coordinating between another HMS provider or outside
No,
of HMS's system?
Outside of HMS.
I'll let you address that.
Well, yeah, we do. We do reach out to other providers, and we also obtain information from other providers, and that's something that we find very useful. We don't want to take them away from their primary care if they have someone outside of our organization. So we do communicate both ways.
That's good.
And HMS uses the same electronic health record, so that's why I was asked the question, if they're seeing a provider in Silver City, say, and they're actually seeing Anita for a service, she can access all their health records in that same software that we're using, so it's all accessible to her. She can look back and see what therapists they're seeing, if they're getting mental health somewhere else, or if a different primary care provider, they can get that information that way as well.
Cool. Thank you.
One more thing, and this was just off the cuff, just because I was listening to the conversation before, if I may be so bold, if you are eventually going to be providing new services or new facilities for your facility, for your school, we would love to collaborate as far as a school-based perspective to make sure that we include the school-based clinics in those new facilities. I've had experience where we're kind of an afterthought with new facilities, and so I think we would collaborate as much or as little as you would want us to in that process, but just to put it on the radar, that if you're going to have new facilities, including a school-based clinic, and that design would be important. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. President, next items. Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is school year 22-23 district calendar with Anna Davis.
Okay, just to kind of give a little history, we usually come up with a calendar that mimics this school's calendar, and we do ask that each school has a representation from their principals to a member of the school, anybody on their school staff, and then we also ask them to bring a parent. So that's who forms our community, our calendar committee, and we also have someone from our union that represents them to make sure that we're following everything we need to. So that's our how we start out with a calendar. So we start out with one that just really looks like this year's calendar. And then during that committee, people bring things, any questions or recommendations, we all listen. We take it back to the schools, they bring it back and forth until we can come up with 2 calendars that we can present to the school board. And we also send out surveys to the community to get feedback from community members and from students and also from staff prior to making any big changes to our calendars. So this year, one of the things that came up was to have more consistency with our calendars and having more of a Monday through Thursday and not having those so many Monday holidays. So that was one thing that came up over and over during our meetings. So that's why the survey went out, was to everyone to asking if they wanted to get completely rid of those Monday holidays, which was Labor Day in September, the President's Day, Martin Luther King, and the Easter Monday. Well, after the survey, and we've asked the teachers and the parents and the students, a lot of them wanted to keep that Monday through Thursday, with the exception of 2 holidays, and that was Labor Day and Easter Monday. The rest of it, they were okay to not have those as Monday holidays. So in taking that consideration, up here you can look at what was sent out as a survey, and we can look at 40% that wanted to keep the holidays, and 55.3% that wanted to do the Monday through Thursday and get rid of the holidays on Mondays to kind of keep a more consistency for our students and our parents and not having to say which Friday are we off or which Friday do we come, what Monday are we off. And so that's what they gave us. But a lot of them also, if you look on the side, were saying, can we please keep the Monday, Labor Day, and the Monday, Easter as holidays? And those were the only two. They didn't care to keep the Martin Luther President's Day as a Monday holiday. And if you go to the next one, Victor. And to kind of give you a perspective of the roles, we have, right here, we have 49% of the staff, which was 156 staff members that did the survey. We had 18.2, which is our students. That was about 58 students that completed the survey. And then if you look at that, it's 30.8, and then there's another little part. There was 2 parts of parents. We had about 100 parents that answered our survey as well, and then community members was a very small portion. And we did send it out through our Facebook page and out through our parent portal, our parent square, and we sent it out, I think, twice that we sent it out.
Twice through
Parent Square, and
then we also sent
flyers home. We sent it again out through our different media things that we send out through Facebook and all of that, and that's what the return was. And so we felt we gave them plenty of time to respond. And then if we go back to the last one, Victor. Oh, then the other one is just broken down by school. So you can see that all the schools, what they're, we pretty much had almost the same amount depending on the size of school responding. So just to kind of give you a breakdown of looking at it, what they wanted, and then by parents and teachers and students, and then by the schools. So just to kind of give you a perspective. So after all that work and coming back and forth to meetings and bringing back ideas, we came up with a calendar A, draft A. So if you look at the bottom in blue, that's draft A. And then we have a draft B, okay, in the green. So I will tell you the differences. The only difference that you're going to see on these calendars is where the ELTP days are. Those are the 10 extra days. So calendar A, they have all the LTP days are in August and in September and in October, just like we had this school year. Calendar B has 5 ELTP days in August, and then the other 5 are in the second semester, 1 in January, 1 in February, 2 in March, and 1 in April. They're the green days, the ones that are color-coded green. That's the only difference on the 2 calendars. And after talking with the staff and seeing what they preferred, I'd like to come back and let you guys know that the majority preferred calendar A. Any questions?
I have a question. Was the data pretty much, is this reflective pretty much of the surveys, or were there actually face-to-face meetings with the committee?
We met with the committee. We did mostly online. They wanted to do it online, and so we had some. Our meetings were online. Five meetings that we had were all online.
And then in between each meeting, what we would ask the committee to go back and do is meet with the staff at their school to get additional input. So then once we whittled it down to the 2 calendars, then the committee went out, met with staff to get feedback from them on which calendar they preferred. So it was a lot of going back and forth with the committee members being the ones that were soliciting input from the rest of the staff. And we did have parents on there.
And we did start with 3 calendars. And so we always try to dwindle down to 2 to bring to you guys. And so, like Ms. Varela said, we had a lot of meetings. They went back and talked to their staff. They came back and forth. And that's usually how it goes every year, to solicit input from everyone before we come up with 2 calendars.
In the second chart, there was parents and then another group of parents. and
So,
then-
so the reason for that is because we gave them roles to select from, and then there was an other. And 2 people put parent on the other. So there was 98 that actually picked the parent, but then 2 that picked other and wrote their role as parent, so.
That was it, yeah, that was the
That was
difference
it.
between
So
that.
those write-ins then?
Yes.
Write-in. So
You
that's
could-
what they
you
wrote,
could pick
not go to,
other-
someone wrote not
Yeah.
go to school at all, right?
Yes.
Yes. There was one that said not even have any school, so.
On every one, we put an other, and that was left to
To-
an open-ended comment.
Yes.
So we had the choices, Cobre employee, student, parent/guardian, or community member. And then other is where they wrote in parent.
Okay.
That's why I counted them all together, the 2 there and the 98, and it was a total of 100 parents.
My concern, and I sat on that committee quite some time ago, and I'll echo the same concern that I had with Martin Luther King Day. I think Martin Luther King Day gives a statement about Cobre in terms of the value of the significance of that day. And I would really like to see Martin Luther King Day be one that we observe. That's one person's comment, and but I think it is reflective of the whole school and the district.
Well, I'd like to say that Martin Luther King was a huge advocate for education as a way to lift people up, and I think it's only appropriate to attend school on that day, and that would be a way to honor him and recognize him on that day.
By doing a lot of different activities in the.
By being in school.
And then not only that, I mean, it truly is, I mean, there's a lot of businesses that don't observe it. I mean, I think it's really only schools and banks and federal, I agree with what you know.
And you're correct, when we looked at it, I believe that only schools and banks, no one else does.
Nobody else observes it.
Mhm. So thank you for the input.
Well, I will say, I do like the, just my input as well, in regards to August on the draft A. You know, this is showing the students are gonna be going to school pretty much the entire month, right? With the OTP?
Yes, and the teachers felt that was really important because the kids are really fresh and they're now starting to think outside the box and making those ELTP days more like a STEM day, making it different from school, you know, the everyday of what you do in school, because we did bring some different ideas of what those ELTP days can look like. Other than come sit in a classroom, you can, you know, have stations where kids are rotating and doing different activities and really building either on their language, their writing, their math, their science, everything, without having to actually be in just like in a regular setting.
Well, and my comment is that I think that's a really good thing because it kind of sets, it sets the, basically, sets the standard there at the beginning of the season. It's a ton of instruction. I guess just the caveat to that is that for those additional ELTP days that they are doing that versus I'm just here and I'm just sitting here and, you know, students don't respond to that very well. If you're making them do something that, and then they're not doing anything productive, I think it would affect them. So I think that's a great idea with a caveat that they are doing some sort of stuff.
And just to let the board know, whatever calendar we do adopt, right now, we have them shown as green ELTP days because we wanted the committee, we wanted the teachers, we want you to be able to see those. When we put out the calendar, we're making all of them are yellow because they're all like regular school days.
Yes.
And we don't want people to say, this is an ELTP day, we're
It's
not
optional,
going.
yeah.
So we'll make them all yellow.
And plus, we have to specify to the State Department too, which ones we're doing as extended learning.
I just want to say thank you for your PowerPoint presentation. It's nice to see how everybody responded. And I know when I went to the NMSBA training, one of the school districts in our state, their ELTP, I guess for like their high school, they do like CDL classes, they do trades, things like that. And I thought that was a really nice way to get students motivated to come on those things. So.
And I think that's where the conversation kind of stemmed, because some had heard about doing things like that. And that's why they wanted them still early on. Because at first they're like, let's spread them out. But then when they started thinking of, you know, what can we do different on those days and really get our kids involved, and it brought that conversation and they decided, let's just keep them there.
So, and I can wanna do a lot of orientations. There's a lot of things that we take for granted when students go to the middle school and when students come to the high school. We take for granted that they know where the bathrooms are, that they know, you know, just basic things that may be different at each school site. So I know the high school really wants to roll out an orientation for their students and their staff. You have new staff that come in too. New staff don't know what the expectations of that school always are either. And so, you know, again, the way each school rolls out those days would be based on their individual needs. But I know, like I say, the high school's already planned one out with their team. What's their team called? The kickboard team, the kickboard team that's been working with Dina on that.
And I just wanted to point out, we do have spring break scheduled in March, and we did check with Western. That is the week that Western also has that week off, and we try to really do that because of our students and some of our staff that do take classes with Western too. So unless they make a change, then we'll come back and ask for a modification, but right now, that's where they have it as well.
And we did check with Silver, but Mr. Hawkins was hoping they would have a date this week of when their spring break may be, but we know that they typically run with Western, so.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So, Mr. President, based on the presentation by Ms. Davis and the fact that most of the staff members preferred calendar A, it would be my recommendation that that be the calendar that the board go with as well.
You heard the recommendation, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Molina, second?
Second.
Take your choice. Doesn't matter.
Thank you.
Second by Ms. Murillo. Any other questions? Call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. David.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Mr. President, moving on to unfinished business. Item A is the superintendent search update. Mr. Bash did send me some additional information today. So those are the additional papers that you have in your packet. We will be reviewing those with you at this time. So, Mr. Bash?
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to share my screen here next. And what I'm going to do is walk you through the leadership profile report, which was scheduled for tonight. And this is a summary of the strongest themes that I heard this past month in listening sessions that we conducted, as well as the survey that we administered at the same time. Let's go this way. Can you see this?
Not yet.
Okay. All right, let me come back here. Try to share a tab instead. How about that?
It's getting there.
Oh, okay.
You're back.
No, there it is. It's there.
Okay, is that large enough for everybody to see?
Can you go with the full slideshow presentation and maybe it would be
Yeah,
larger?
let me try
There you
that.
go.
Is that larger now?
Yes.
Are we good?
Yes.
Okay. So we hosted 25 listening sessions from March 9th to 25th. And we had 35 total survey responses from that rough window. We stopped the survey just a day earlier. Had 126 total participants in the community engagement work that we did. On the right side of the screen, you'll see the breakdown of participants by group. The largest group you'll see were teachers. We did have a good turnout for the listening session there, as well as the survey. And then I want to give a shout out to Sandra Montoya. She was able to gather a group of Cobre High School students for a focus group session there. And so All but one of those students there were from Cobre High School. The other I can't tell you because it was on the survey and this is identified as a student. So I'm jumping right in. The first question we ask is, what do you consider to be the greatest strengths of the district? Folks mentioned the small community and the district, noting that it's a close-knit community. Many families have been here for a long, long time, many for multiple generations. Several people commented that in times of need, the Bayard community comes together, supports each other. They talked about folks that have experienced loss or a fire, things like that. The community comes together to support each other. Several people commented on the community being a safe place, and that wasn't to say that the community is not without any crime, but compared to larger cities, that's the context a lot of people gave, and that it's a nice, small, rural place to raise a family. There was also a strong sense of shared responsibility for children and youth in the community. And then the last bullet here, staff mentioned that when you have a smaller district size like Cobre, it's easier to coordinate things across schools if you're looking for some consistency or continuity in what you're trying to accomplish. Another strong theme with strengths was many people saying that there are great teachers and very dedicated staff at Cobre. They described them as kind and hardworking as well. Several elementary staff and principals were named by parents, and I'll share with you in most searches, that's what we hear is a lot of affirmation around elementary services, and that's not to slight secondary staff. It's just a pattern that we see for some reason. When I did interview the Cobre High School student group, they called out that their teachers, most of their teachers generally care about their education, and they had a strong feeling about that. At the district level, I did meet with the administrative staff team, and they, most of them called out the teamwork at the district level that they appreciate, and some of those people credited Joyce for her work in trying to promote that kind of culture at the district office. Some of them mentioned that folks at the district level, if schools are shorthanded, will sometimes go out to schools, drop what they're doing, and that's another kind of teamwork that was talked about. There also were many staff who shared that there are staff that come and have stayed, despite some of the challenges I'll get into. There are many staff that are deeply committed to the students of the community and their schools, and so have chosen to stay for a long time. And so that loyalty and stability was called out as a strength. This next slide, community involvement. Several folks, including some board members, shared with me that there's a history of community support for bonds and levies. There were some that mentioned a recent challenge with that, but a long history was mentioned by several folks that I talked to, both community members and folks within the district. In a smaller community, not unusual for the schools to be considered a focal point for community gatherings. And several people called out that, again, a history of people participating and attending school events. I talked to business partners, and you heard from Ms. Frost tonight from the school-based health clinic. She was among the partners that I spoke to. She and others appreciate the partnership with the district, and several of them mentioned that they're interested in expanding partnerships with the new superintendent when that time comes. On to challenges. I had mentioned to the school board that we might anticipate some calling out some school board disagreement. That did come up, and it was a theme. So I show it here. And a couple folks also mentioned that they feel that it's contributed to a perception in the district that maybe the district isn't well managed. Many of them clarifying that they didn't feel that was a fair representation, but noted it. Some folks also called out that the way in which local media chooses to cover board meetings in great detail perpetuates this as well. And so some of them mentioned that the recent board decision to proceed with policy updates and strategic planning are hopeful. And tonight, as I'm listening in, there's a 5-0 vote tonight for the board to engage in a workshop to build teamwork, and that's fantastic. And so while this was a challenge called out, there is clear evidence that the board is aware of this and taking positive steps and proactive steps to address it. Financial management and resource allocation was another strong theme, and when I asked what the greatest challenges were. And both school and district level staff shared concerns regarding a lack of resources and support, but as with most districts, you hear a little different example set from school staff than you'll hear from district staff. That's normal. So at the school level, staff started with, and it was the most common need that was expressed, that there's a need for more staff support. District and school staff called out the sub shortage, which is not unique to Cobre. It's a nationwide challenge right now, but it's felt in the Cobre schools. Principals mentioned that they're frequently covering positions and issues in the school, especially if staff are absent. And that includes things like serving breakfast and lunch, campus supervision, custodial services, classroom coverage, all those things. The school staff expressed frustration with the staffing shortage they identified, indicating that a common response from the district is that there's no money. And the frustration emanates from what they claim is some added positions at the district level rather than those resources being invested out in schools. The financial services department in particular was called out, and then instructional coaches were mentioned. That said, as I talked to district staff, including some board members, the gradual decline in enrollment is an economic impact to any school district. The CARES Act funding was mentioned as a temporary source of support to reduce the hit to the district, but the temporary nature of that CARES Act money is also a concern moving forward regarding budget planning. And the instructional coaches, I learned, were part of grants. And the district's been very successful in writing grants that are offered up by the state. And so many called out that those grants have allowed the district to update instructional programs, primarily in the area of literacy, and provide some additional instructional coaching staff. District staff also pointed out, and I'm very familiar with this, that when you have grants or federal monies or special education or any of those different pockets of funding, they all come with spending rules and regulations. My observation is that there may be some confusion and or lack of awareness on the part of some school staff regarding how all that works. And so perhaps some additional communication around that might help. But as a longtime district administrator, I can tell you it's one of the greatest challenges of district leadership is interpreting all those rules to begin with, and then helping staff understand in a way that's concise, but also acknowledges, gosh, we want to be supportive, but there are certain rules and regulations that don't allow us to spend, for example, special education money on custodial staff, right? So I think there's some of that tension there. School staff and leaders want more input into budget decisions at the district level, grant and program decisions. And on the program decision side, some staff indicated that the number of new initiatives within a certain time frame have sometimes seemed heavy, and then the particular program selection was mentioned by some teachers as something that they would like more input into moving forward. Finally, I did hear from some staff that there's been a healthy emphasis and focus on literacy, language arts, a need for more focus on mathematics given the most recent student achievement results for Cobre. Let's see. Continuing with the financial management and resource allocation challenge, district staff did acknowledge there are staffing needs, but also mentioned there's just a general teacher shortage. So beyond the substitute shortage, it was shared with me that positions like special education often go unfilled because of a lack of candidates. And so sometimes it's not a lack of funding, it's a lack of market to fill some of those positions. The other thing that was shared with me was that the legislature did approve state level compensation increases. A real challenge with that is that they're not fully funded by the state. And so I just put here that's an added budget challenge. So when you read a news headline and you're a school employee, you might think, great, you know, the increases are coming. And uniformly, everybody in the district believes that's a good thing for educators to be paid at a more appropriate level. The challenge, if you're trying to build a district budget, is how do you pay for the compensation increases the state is not funding? Because isn't it true that all staff deserve some sort of increase if some staff are getting them? Facility needs were another challenge category that emerged as a theme. And tonight I'm glad I sat in on the facilities planning discussion that you've had, and the great news is there is a direction that the board and the district is headed in terms of studying facility conditions, and it sounds like the folks that you've hired to look at that have actually spent time in the facilities. But some examples shared were heating and ventilation systems. Particularly at the high school, we had some high school kids report that in the winter months, they're asked to bring coats to school due to a lack of heating in several parts of the building. I heard about aging student desks and classroom furniture, primarily at the elementary level. Lunch tables were mentioned, security signage, missing ceiling and floor tiles in some buildings. Those are just a few examples, and some folks indicated that they'd made requests, sometimes repeated requests for these things, and either the response was, we don't have funding, or no response. And so I just call those things out. It might be worth some additional communication or circling back with school leaders in particular around, well, so what are the needs you and your staff have, and maybe a prioritization of those things. Some mentioned a lack of ample custodial staffing, and some custodians that participated in my staff session indicated that there were cleaning equipment repairs and replacements that they've requested that still are pending without a response so far. There were some students who indicated a need for updated and expanded tools for the auto and welding programs at the high school. And then some did mention what I heard again tonight, that apparently the state school facilities funding system in some way penalizes districts for investing in facility repairs. And so I learned a bit more tonight from the earlier presentation. And so there is some understanding out there among school folks that there might be a challenge in doing major repairs. Their request was, well, are there some things that won't penalize us that at least could get some heat in the classroom, for example? So that was shared with me. So after strengths and challenges, we move on in these conversations and on the survey to what do you most desire in the next superintendent by way of characteristics. And so built this around two major themes that emerged. The first is communicator and team builder. So somebody who can come in and has the ability to build and sustain collaborative, trusting relationships with and among school board members, because that's a team, and to focus the leadership efforts at the district level on a shared vision. So the great news here is the district has already started down the road with a strategic planning initiative. I already mentioned the school board workshop that you've agreed tonight to proceed with, and facilities planning. So there are 3 examples that are already underway that I think candidates could look at and say, well, the district's already making strides in that direction, and I think that's reason to be optimistic. An honest and transparent communicator. Some folks, as we listened, indicated that sometimes there's a perception that they're not getting the whole story. And so the different communication strategies and tools might merit some review. But really what I heard is they want somebody who will listen to multiple perspectives, even those that they might not agree with, and share back the input that they gathered, communicate plans for addressing any concerns, and then keep the staff and community informed regarding progress being made on any concerns. I heard from several board members and staff, along with parents and community. They want somebody who's visible, community-minded, they attend school and community events, but they're also accessible and approachable, that they actively engage in school and community life. And so that was an important one. Inspires unity, teamwork, and a strong sense of shared responsibility. So especially with the financial challenge that I mentioned, there seemed to be just a general sort of divide between school level staff and their current mindset and the challenges that district level leaders are facing. And so I think there's an opportunity to bring that particular topic to a more unified sort of understanding to begin with, and then perhaps, you know, a system of decision making that involves maybe a few more voices. And that's the next bullet, somebody who's a skilled facilitator of inclusive decision-making processes to facilitate ways to have voices heard. And tonight, I guess I would call out the calendar conversation. That's a great example of inviting a lot of voices to get involved in a decision that affects all of them, a calendar, the school district calendar. So it's not that the district's not doing any of this, and that's evidence of that, but what I heard was a desire for more of that. Experience developing, implementing, and evaluating district strategic plans. That one's logical because if you're already starting down that road, the timing's great for a new superintendent to come and join you in that effort. And it'd be nice if we could find somebody who has a little bit of experience with that, as well as school improvement plans. And then the second broad category is operational and fiscal leader. A lot of folks, even community folks, said public school funding in New Mexico is complex, and it has opportunities and challenges. So somebody who's prepared to take that on, preferably knowledgeable about that, and then proactive and resourceful in not only garnering resources, but overseeing budget processes and funding opportunities aligned with your goals. Somebody who can evaluate the efficiency and effectiveness of all district operations. And then I underline, makes necessary staffing, spending, and program decisions to ensure student and school level needs are a priority. I'm not suggesting that they are not a priority, but there's a perception out there, and I mentioned the example earlier, that there are discretionary choices being made. But, you know, as a former district leader, I can tell you it's not unusual for school folks not to realize you have to have sufficient staffing and payroll to make sure paychecks are issued each month. And that doesn't really help me if I'm struggling to get all my kids the math help or the reading help they need during the day. So again, I think the next leader is going to have to be very strategic about this and balance the needs of the school with the needs to run an effective and efficient district operation at the same time. The district also is engaged in a policy review, and we did hear a desire that somebody make sure that they're not only reviewed and updated, but they're consistently follow. And so in working with the board and working with staff, making sure that if there's protocols, if there's systems or steps and policies and procedures, that we simply follow. And then I did capture the ability to balance the tension between new ideas and programs and the need for consistency, program stability, staff capacity, and then basic school level funding needs. So if there is discretionary funding, what I heard loud and clear from school staff is if we can utilize money that would be spent on a brand new curriculum on some basic school staffing needs instead for a time, that would clearly be their preference. Dedicated to developing and expanding community partnerships. This is primarily included because I had multiple business partners in your community saying they are ready and they want to be supportive and coordinate with the district ways they can be supportive of your students and the community. And so that's fantastic. Committed to transparency, accountability, and effective management of financial resources. So there will always be lack of sufficient funding to do everything the district wants, but with the resources you have, the strategic plan often becomes the roadmap for saying these are our priorities, and then often the financial decisions follow those priorities, mean fund those priorities. So, so that's about a month-long result in summary of a whole lot of listening and review of written responses that we received. So I'm going to pause there and ask if the board has any questions for me.
Any question? Do you have any updates on applicants?
I do. I'm going to roll ahead because that's part of my next set of updates for you, unless anybody has questions about the report I just summarized.
Can we get a copy of that though, hard copy?
We have one.
We have one?
I gave it to you.
Oh,
That's what I mentioned a while ago, that's part of the packet I just gave you a while ago.
Yeah. So the summary I just gave you is provided in an actual report document for the board. That document will be posted to the district website tomorrow for staff and community to take a look at as well. So the slides were more of a summary of that. There may be a few more examples in that document, but I wanted to, and thank you, Joyce, for making copies. I wanted to make sure the board had copies of that to take with them. You'll also see a one-page document that basically lifts out the desired qualifications and puts them on one page. And the reason I do that is we often then share that one pager with prospective candidates or candidates we've already spoken to so that they see these results as well. That make sense?
thank you.
Well, you bet.
Any other questions? Thank you,
All
John.
right. So, are my slides still up? Are you still seeing this?
Now we can.
Okay, all right. So here's the recruiting update. We're up to 16 prospective contacts made. Like last time, I had 2 verbalized an intent to apply. Now I have 1 completed application, and I have 1 candidate still considering whether or not to apply. And again, I continue with the advertising and outreach until the position closes on April 7th. Among these 4 that I just mentioned, all of them are serving as school or district leaders in New Mexico currently. Questions on recruiting?
Any question?
Okay. I'm going to keep going then. Our planning then for the next steps of this process are really focused on the next phase, which is screening. And so, as I just mentioned, the application window closes on April 7th. On Monday, April 11th, at your regular school board meeting, we'll need to schedule an executive session. That executive session will be part of a broader topic, which is my superintendent search update. And then I put and planning because the executive session, which is an allowable option for discussing candidates for consideration and their qualifications. And I dropped in language from the New Mexico Open Meetings Act because I know in the past there have been questions regarding what is an allowable executive session topic and what is not. And so I learned some things about the New Mexico statute that you not only have to put this language in your meeting agenda once you come out of executive session, there needs to be a statement confirming that the matters discussed were limited to those in the agenda, and then that has to appear in the minutes. Things I'm sure several of you already know, but I'm just putting it in there for transparency's sake, just in case anybody from the public wonders, well, why isn't that in public session? And then we return to public session for these other agenda topics, which will be interview planning and logistics along with roles. I will be providing some interview guidance. The board did decide that they wanted a stakeholder input plan or participation plan, so we'll talk about some ideas there. We need to talk about background checks and what the board's wishes are with regard to that step. And then I'll have some school board homework, and that'll primarily be around a list of possible interview questions that will align with the characteristics that I just went through as part of the profile report, but also some questions that are pretty standard across all the responsibility areas that a superintendent would have. And generally what I ask each individual board member to do is go through on their own and review all those questions and prioritize maybe the top 10 or top 12 that they would prefer to ask. And then as part of the interview planning, we take a look at where there's some crossover or commonality between all 5 of you and what you would like to ask and how you'd like to ask it. That homework also invites you to draft questions you may not see there that you would like to see asked, and you can add that for consideration as well. So that's at the Monday, April 11th school board meeting. Before I move from this slide, I wanted to pause here and ask the board and Joyce, are there topics on that board meeting agenda that make this problematic just in terms of length? Because this, all told, this will probably take 30 to 45 minutes.
There shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. All right.
John, can I get a copy of that though, since you have the terminology there already for the agenda?
Absolutely. I will send this to you when we're done here, Joyce. I'll email it to you.
Thank you.
All right. So what I'm recommending based on the number of applicants and candidates we have prospectively is that we move from a 2-phased interview model to a single interview phase, which also saves a bit of time. So the first week for interviews that we had calendared was the week of April 18th through the 22nd, but we had not selected a specific day or days, nor had we decided how we wanted to go about structuring the interview. So I've listed a couple of options here, and it's not limited to this, but these are 2 of the most common options. So let's say that the board selects 3 candidates that they want to interview. Some boards decide that they want an individual candidate to come on what can be a full day and an evening, or come in the afternoon and then wrap up their visit to the district with a community forum and then an interview with the board. But in that model, if you had 3 candidates, then we would need 3 dates where all 5 board members could be there and participate in interviews and deliberations after the interview activities. Another model is, again, if the scenario was we had 3 candidates, some districts have said, well, what if we invited all three of them to come on a single day and we coordinate a rotation of activities? So the board, for example, would start at the front end of a window, interview candidate A. That candidate would leave the board interview and maybe do a visit with school and district administrators, and then meet with staff. And then the candidate B would come in and interview with the board and be on a different rotation. It's something we can structure and stagger, but it would require a little more support from the team at Cobre there, and it usually falls to administrative staff that I would work with at the district to organize this and coordinate that. So I just share a couple of those concepts with you because, you know, we can get into other variations, but I wanted to first just get your reaction on that along with your availability the week of April 18th to the 22nd. So let's start with availability. What do your calendars look like that week as board members?
John, I don't know that it would matter, but Monday, the 18th, there's no school, depending on which way you chose to go.
Okay.
So would it be during the day or in the evening?
If we went with each candidate on a separate day, my recommendation is that you start in the afternoon, unless you want folks to come and do a school tour, in which case I would say have them come midday. We'd have to arrange for somebody to drive them around and do, it's usually like 2 school visits and then maybe a tour around town to show them, you know, other sites where the district is, maybe the mine, you know, some of the prominent features of the community. But if you didn't do the school visits, you could start at typically 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. And usually what you see is they start with a group of school and district leaders. They might go then to a staff group, and you have that great performing arts center, and so that's the space I would recommend for a lot of these activities. And then rather than the candidate moving around, the candidate could be stationed there and the groups would rotate in and out, because then you know, in terms of giving your community a forum and an opportunity to come and meet the candidate, there could be a community forum. A lot of districts are inviting students to help facilitate the community forums. And my understanding from your high school principals, there is a leadership group at your high school that probably would be capable of doing that with some guidance and coaching. And then the night usually ends with a confidential executive session interview with the school board. And then I would be on hand to assist you with deliberations, either remotely or in person, for that model. So that's kind of the model if you had the candidates come and just each have a day. And so that's one model. It's a little more intense if you have all three come on the same day, because you have to generally start earlier so that you can fit everybody into all the different activities. So every candidate experiences each group in each activity. But we could put that together and have you look at that. I'm just wondering conceptually, do either of those ideas, you know, elicit, gosh, I like that, or gosh, I really don't like that? Just interested in your thoughts on the options.
So just my input, you know, I do have a full-time job, so taking a day off of work would require me taking annual leave, which I actually don't have a problem with. But that whole week, it's a 50-50, more like 75-25% chance I will be out of state. I'll be in Montana.
Oh, okay.
I can definitely attend in the evenings if it's remote.
Okay,
But I would prefer, I mean, and this is just letting the board know what my opinion, I would prefer if we do it in the evenings, it's just a whole lot easier for me, because it's.
okay,
Right. Yeah, and same with me, that week we're doing our state testing at school, so I can't miss work.
But
All right.
remote in the evenings, I can definitely do. I can peel away and make time, however long it is, to do that, so.
And me, those 2 weeks, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm busy.
I'm sorry, Tuesdays and Thursdays?
Yeah, Tuesdays and Thursdays, the 12th through the 21st, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm busy, those.
You're busy, okay.
Could we do Monday, Wednesday, Friday?
Yeah,
We have 3 candidates.
And for me, it's hit and miss with the fires. It's too early to schedule or tell anything, because it's a day-to-day thing, especially at that time. Yeah, with those trucks.
All right, well, in our original calendar, when we were gonna do 2 phases of interviews, we also were looking at that following week for finalists, so the week of the 25th. Is that a better, I mean, it delays things a week, but is that a better week for people?
it's the same thing for me on Tuesdays and Thursdays that following week also.
Okay.
It is a better week for me, I
We
can do either option.
But we can do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. There,
On the week of the 18th?
Or the 25th.
Or the
because we'll go to
25th.
school that
Either
day.
week.
You got a board meeting on the 25th.
yeah.
But Director Molina, are you back that following week then? Is that a better week for you?
Yeah, that week of the week of the 25th to the 29th, I'm local, so I can, you know, and I don't mind taking a day of leave or flexing a day, I can definitely do that. That'll be
Okay.
fun.
So John, the evening of the 25th, we do have a board meeting scheduled that day.
That's correct. Yeah, I'm showing that too. So we try to avoid that. But it means a heavy week for the board if you do the 1 candidate per day model. So would you like me to mock up some possible schedules so you can see what the day might look like if we did a single day and then?
Could we do, let's say noon on the 25th before the board meeting?
Well, depending on how they schedule. I would say create a couple of schedules, John, going both ways, and then let's have the board look at them and see what works best for everybody.
Okay. And then between now and then, since we already had the last 2 weeks in April kind of earmarked, if the 4th week is better for folks, you know, we can certainly look at that. But right now, I'm going to avoid Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Because that way Canuto can be here.
Yeah, the 4th week, it would work out for me, and probably Serena, since we have testing this, Serena?
As of right now, we have testing the week of the 19th through 21st, those days. But if it's after, if it's like 3:30, 4, it wouldn't matter.
What about the next?
Okay.
24th?
Right now, it's open.
I'm open right now, I'm open as well, too, so.
I have a question, John, on the process. We opted to go open, we opted to go closed to begin with and then open for the final selection.
Yes, sir.
Are we going to do both, or are we just going to do the final selection because of the limited number of candidates?
Yeah, so it's what we're doing is combining, and what we're saying is the open part that the board wanted, we need to structure in. That's why the concepts I'm sharing with you tonight both accomplish that, just in a different way. And so that's why what my homework will be to kind of create a picture of what they could look like so you can see how stakeholders will be involved. But either way, the school board still needs to conduct an interview. Those interviews are typically conducted in executive session between the candidate and the board.
I was under the impression that the open session would be an interview during the open meeting.
Right, so the community forum I mentioned is typically that there's a set of questions. I mentioned maybe student-led, but we would develop questions that we want the candidate to respond to as part of the community forum in public. And so that would be open. And for example, if they met with staff, we would invite staff to generate questions, and they would answer a separate set of questions when they meet with staff. If the school and district leaders want to generate questions, which I help facilitate, then so it's a series of interviews and conversations throughout their visit, including a formal interview with the school board, which typically takes place in a closed session.
And that's what I don't understand, because the way we talked about it, the initial would be closed and then the final would be open. And what you're talking about is having an open interview community process and then a closed session interview for the selection. And what we had talked about was having the closed session, having the open session interview for the selection after the preliminary interviews were done. And the preliminary interviews would have been in closed session. And that's what, if you look back at your plan, I think that's pretty much what we had agreed upon.
Well, and again, I apologize if that wasn't clear. If we go back to the two interview phases, the first interview phase was all closed, meaning that assumed like 5 or 6 candidates. The board would interview them in an executive session, and then they would cull down that number of candidates to a top 2, maybe 3. And then for the finalist round, the open part of the process typically means you want to include your stakeholders in meeting the finalists. So we publicly announce their names, we get a little bio information from them and maybe a photo, and we post that on the website. And then during their visit to the district, whatever that looks like, they actually engage with different stakeholder groups. For the board interview, if the board wants to do a open interview, I have seen boards do that as part of the community forum, where they interview the candidate and people can tune in, much like we're doing tonight. But deliberations on any candidate at any step are in executive session among the board.
Understood.
And then, what's that?
Understood, but.
Okay.
So that scenario you just described is what I thought we had agreed to.
Okay, and if that's what the board wants to do, we can certainly structure that. So I guess I would invite the rest of the board to weigh in with your understanding regarding what it is you're picturing, because I want to make sure I deliver on what you want.
I think that we do the interview in executive session, the preliminary, and then we do the community forum where they ask the questions, and then the final selection we do in executive session too, and then we go out to open and announce.
That differs from what we had put forward as what
Or
we agreed
or is the final in open?
What we had agreed to was the final was in open.
Yeah, and my explanation was that the open nature of the finalist process is really intended for your stakeholders to meet the candidates. And then normally what we structure is some way for your stakeholders to give input on what they observe. So, for example, in a community forum, if it's the board asking them questions or students, whoever, we would have some way for those who tune in to then fill out an input form or an input survey to give the board input on the strengths they noticed with the candidate and any questions or concerns they had about a candidate. And so we could certainly do that. What I was getting at earlier in my explanation regarding a board interview that would be public, that could be a public forum. If we're not doing a preliminary round of interviews 1 week and then doing a finalist round, then, I guess my question to the board is, do you want the board's interview with a single round of interviews to be public or in executive session? I guess that's the question I'm asking.
Well, I think we need to do one in executive session and then another one in open where we select the candidate, because we can't take action in executive session.
You can't take action in executive session, but you can interview and you can deliberate.
Yes.
You just can't decide in an executive session.
Yeah, that's what I say. I think the first interview would have to be an executive session, and then the next one would be an open where we make the selection.
And I agree, that's exactly what we had spelled out.
All right, I will put together some schedules then, sample schedules using both methods that capture an executive session interview and then a public interview of some sort, but then a closed session to deliberate, and then coming back into public session for somebody to make a motion and recommend a selection.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep. Okay.
I got that. Let me get back here. Is the salary benefit slide up now?
Yes.
Okay, so just a quick update from last meeting. I did receive records from Cobre, Deming, Lordsburg, Silver City, and Zuni. I am still waiting to hear back from the districts you see listed. I did send records requests to all of those districts so that I could put together that salary and benefit data I mentioned at our last meeting. What I do need the board to plan for is typically it's 2 board members along with counsel from the district's attorney that negotiate with the selected candidate. Some boards choose to formally authorize those 2 board members to engage in negotiations. Typically, it's the board president and 1 other board member. If this board wants to formally authorize that, I'm recommending that at your April 11th meeting that be placed on the agenda. That said, the contract between the district and the superintendent has to be approved by the entire board at the end of that negotiations process. So my question to the board is, I brought this up the last time I gave you an update. And so my question tonight is, how would you like to proceed, I guess, in determining which board members negotiate with the candidate you select?
Would the attorney be on site or would she be online?
That's a good question. I'm not sure who the district has used as legal counsel, but it really is your district attorney. And so if you have somebody locally there you work with, I guess it would be up to the firm. Some districts only use the attorney at the document step, meaning they'll go ahead and negotiate directly with the candidate and then ask the attorney to develop documents based on the terms that the board wants and agrees to with the candidate.
Because our attorney is not local.
Okay. Yeah, so that would be another board decision then. Do you want somebody to join you to assist with the actual negotiation process, or do you just want the attorney to review documents for you and make sure all the documents meet legal state requirements?
Well, let me give her a call and we'll see what they recommend.
Okay, all right. And then you know, I mentioned, I think the last time I was visiting with you all that as candidates come in, you know, they will have some desires in terms of what a contract entails. One of the questions that I posed for you to think about was contract term and how many years you're willing to pledge to the selected candidate, and what you know, if it's more than a year, then what other terms are important to you as a board to have in the contract if they got 2 or 3 year term. So typically what happens around contract negotiations is once the 2 board members are identified, there's either some individual consultation with other board members around, you know, what are you comfortable with? And do you have some ideas on what you want in the contract? And, you know, that's another thing. If you wanted to simply put that on the agenda for April 11th and talk about that in an open meeting, you can do that too. But I'm preparing you now that what our firm does is, you know, we will assist you with some ideas around contracting, but this is part of the process that the board takes on directly with the candidate. I don't serve as your agent, you know, in the negotiations process. So that's why it's a planning piece for you, and I'm putting this out in front of you now so you have ample time to figure out how you want to navigate this.
But the contract is not pretty much until we make a selection, right?
That's correct. That's why I'm way ahead of the curve here, just in terms of timeline. I just don't want to have you scrambling, you know, once we're real close to selecting a candidate. It's helpful if I can also explain to a candidate, look, if you're selected, here's how the next step will work. You know, the board president and this board member are going to meet with you, and they will reach out to you to set up a time. And, you know, you'll want to be thinking about terms that you want to talk to them about, you know, those kinds of things. So it's just helpful to have a plan. And
Okay.
so that's why I'm putting it out there.
All right.
Okay?
So then, John, on the next board meeting agenda, it's under action items as far as contract negotiations to determine who and how?
Yeah, normally the language I see boards put on their agenda is authorization to represent the board in superintendent negotiations. And so it's kind of like board officers. Somebody will nominate or propose, and then there's a motion. So, you know, between now and April 11th, it's probably prudent for Toy, for you as the board president, probably to reach out to each of the other 4 board members and just ask, you know, where they're at in terms of a desire to join you for that kind of thing. Just so you have a sense from each individual board member where you might want to go, so that somebody's prepared at the next meeting to take the formal action or at least entertain a motion to authorize that.
Okay. And then,
Okay.
and then at the same time, I will ask them that if there is something that they would like to see in the contract.
Sure, yeah, and if, you know, if that part you want to just put on the agenda for the next meeting, you know, you certainly can. It might save you a little bit of time, but that's up to you. And then you mentioned you're going to reach out to the attorney. They may have some additional suggestions for you.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so next steps have not changed. I'm going to take your eyes down to the strike through that I had, because based on the number of candidates, I'm recommending that we go to a single round of interviews. My only hesitation here is if that week, that April 25th to 29th works better for the board. I'll revisit that with you on the 11th, but I guess I need to ask, are there any objections to consolidating the interview plan to a single phase? You good with that?
My schedule's more open, so I'm indifferent. I'm available for either.
I'm okay with combining them.
As am I.
Okay. So is there a sense, I mean, if the board's portion of this is largely in the evening, it sounded like the week of 18 through 22 would work as long as we can, as long as Canuto can zoom in.
Yeah, I can break away, because yeah, I should be able to break away. I don't know.
Okay.
Let me,
But again, John, I thought I understood their preference was the 25th to 29th.
I could, yes, I could definitely break away, but I would prefer the 25th.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about it now I'll be on Pacific Standard, so the time zone may play.
I think the best one would be on the 25th through the 29th.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'll work for me.
As long as it's not the Tuesday and Thursday of that week.
Right, and then Joyce, you said there's a board meeting on the 25th. I've showed that here on the calendar, so we would avoid that day too. All right, so I'm going to aim for that last week in April, and I will get you some sample interview schedules to look over, and then on April 11th, we'll revisit the plan.
Okay, and you and I will get together for everything that needs to be put on the board agenda for the 11th.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and if there's any questions, do call me. And with that, that's what I had for you tonight. Thank you for your patience and spending some time. I really want to thank Joyce and Irma for their help with the engagement phase, a lot of scheduling help. I mentioned your high school principal, and then Victor and Daniel for all their technology help. Your staff is wonderful to work with, and they've been very helpful to me. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
John.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, Mr. Superintendent, the next item on the agenda is the strategic plan. So we did make a decision at the last meeting to go with David Chavez from CES. He does want to schedule a community needs assessment meeting. He said it'd be like a 3-hour meeting from 6 to 9. He needs us to set some possible dates. His recommendation was the last week in April, but that's gonna kind of tie us up. So, with this other superintendent search, so we need to look at some possibilities of that. And I also included in your packet, he did send a recommendation of the needs assessment participants, so if board members have anybody that they want to add in any of these categories and get them back to me, I will get them to David so that we can look at adding those people and making sure that they are specifically invited. Doesn't mean those are the only ones invited, just means they would specifically be invited to the community needs assessment. So I don't know if you have a specific week we want to look at. I don't know if we want to now look at the first week of May, since we're going to be tied up, possibly the last couple of weeks in April.
First week in May, whatever is okay with me.
I'm open.
First week of May?
Yeah,
Right.
so we'll look.
Yeah.
I don't think we have a board meeting that week, so, okay, I'll get with him and just let him know first week in May for a date. And we'll set that and bring it to the next board meeting.
And this needs assessment is,
So, as part of the strategic plan, just kind of looking to see how community, it kind of sounds a little bit like some of the work that John has done, so I may, even share the work that John has done through his listening sessions, maybe it can be integrated into that, but I kind of think that it's kind of the same thing. What is the community saying that some of our needs are, so that we can be able to develop our goals based on that?
but a large part of a strategic plan too is vision.
Yeah,
Where to
we
go
will come up
forward.
with the vision and goals and that kind of thing as part of our goal planning sessions.
Okay,
But I think he just wants to get a feel for what some of the community, staff, students, parents what their
Okay.
goal
Well, I
is.
think, and that's how we're gonna build our vision, is by getting those needs and assessment from all our stakeholders. I don't think they're so much building the vision, but they're helping us build the vision.
Yeah, that's a lot different than a vision, because it's more of, dealing with the present, not looking into the future.
Well, but I think
I
it's
think we need-
taking their input so that when we do go into the work session, that helps to create.
The vision for the future.
Which is how to deal with the present. It doesn't matter, it's semantics.
All right, so I'll work on that. And then, again, the form, if there's anybody uninvited, you'll get that to me or to Irma. And then, under new business, Melissa minus, special education memorandum of understanding. No, I said it wrong.
No.
Yes.
Good evening, Board President and board members. I'm just here to share good news for our maintenance of effort, our MOE. So we, as a district, have met our requirement to expend state and local funds for children with disability to the same capacity that we did in 2020. And so that's a big part of moving forward as we start receiving grant applications and things for Idea B. That is one of the questions that they ask before they release our funding. So I just wanted to share that news. This letter that's in there is the notice that comes to Ms. Varela informing us of that accomplishment.
Thank you. Move this to 5.
Okay. So that takes us to 6.
Public input. This time, anything around the public reference to our agenda? Anything, Victor? Anybody?
No, sir. No, sir, at the time.
Okay. Brings us to superintendent report.
Superintendent report, we have a facilities update by Mr. Peru.
We're ready to roll. That's why Melissa and I are moving on. Let's go. Just want to give you guys an update on, we are continuing with the Ream air purifiers. The high school is like 90% complete. What we have not completed at the high school is the business department and one of the special ed rooms and the lobby area. We will be completing that hopefully next week on that one. San Lorenzo is completed, all the classrooms. What we're trying to do is focus on the classrooms where the kids are, and then we'll work on the places where not as many people are there. All the classrooms at San Lorenzo are complete. The only thing we have not completed at San Lorenzo is the teacher's lounge. Hurley, we started it this week, and we hope to have it completed by Saturday of the end of this week, and then we'll start working on Bayard and Central also to get those things in Snell. Had some good news. We were able to pick up bus 22. As we had mentioned before, you know, we were having trouble getting that part. Visited with the Cummings representatives again, so we were able to get the part in the week before, and bus 22, we picked it up on Wednesday, and we already sent it out on a trip over the weekend. It seemed to run well. Everything was running good with it. The new bus, the paint job is about 75% complete. He said he's working on some graphics and getting that stuff taken care of. As I mentioned before, we did not change a lot. It's going to look a lot like bus 24. We changed a few things up on top. It's not going to say Lady Indians and Indians or Indians and Lady Indians on top. We just put Lady Indians on one side, Indians on the other side. And the reason we didn't change a lot of it is because if we would have changed and done all these new graphics, we would have been about a month still before we could touch the bus. So by doing it this way, and the one thing we did do in the front, the only changes we did make, and those were simple, he said, we put the Indian Pride logo for the band. We put it on the back. So we have that, so the band's participation now. And then we changed the one logo in front, just instead of the C with the spear, we put the Zia symbol in back of the C with the spear. And that is the only things that we did. So they're hoping to be able to deliver it by next Friday. So your next board meeting, you'll be able to see the bus. So we're hoping that if it gets delivered, because they will deliver it to us, they'll bring it to us on hopefully next Friday. So we're hoping that way which we need it right now with the spring sports, especially as many kids as we have out for spring sports. And that is all I have on the updates. Any questions on anything that's come up anywhere or anything that I can answer? No? Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
We've already done item B.
Student rep, we don't have one at this time. Anything from the public again?
Is there anything on public input? For the last public input?
Nope. Okay. Items for next agenda.
Items for next agenda, I have the bond gym project as an action item. I want Ms. Davis to give us an update on, the policy. What I had asked her to do is create a calendar of tentative dates and timelines, because I think if we don't do that, months and weeks are gonna go by and we're not gonna have done anything. So I want her to present that at the next meeting. We've got all the items that John had, for us, as well as the, what did he say, authentication, authorization to represent the board as far as the superintendent search. So that's what I have so far.
Okay, I have a few things I'd like on the next meeting. Can we have the union start giving us a report presentation? And
As far as,
well, like how we have a student representative report, a superintendent's report, can we have a union report with Aaron Lewis? And also, I'd like an update with the exit survey. And we also need to, as a board, appoint the finance subcommittee.
Yeah, I had that. And there'll be, from now on also, there'll be an item on the agenda that says, financial subcommittee report, because we do have, according to what they told us the other day, is that we will have to post legal notice for the finance subcommittee and for the audit committee.
So we posted for Thursday's finance committee meeting, and we changed the audit committee meeting from this week to next week so that we could get that posted.
Yeah, and then when we have a finance committee, there'll be an item here that says finance subcommittee report.
That the board members will report?
Yeah, yes. And then we'll be having to take notes. And then we do need to note that it is not open to the general public. The subcommittee is not open to general public, but the audit committee is.
So the finance committee
Yeah.
is only board members?
Board members and whoever else deals with the budget, like you, Melissa, Terry.
Well, that's why I think we need to appoint, and if we're getting into the audit, that also needs to be appointed by the school board.
By the board president?
It's statute, it's school board, not president.
There's a difference between the state
It's a statute.
administrative,
It's
a
statute.
statute.
It's statute 22.812.3 that the school board appoints the finance committee and the audit
I
committee.
believe that was discussed in that training.
Right, it was in the training. And also, I've spoken to school boards around our area, and they all have community members on their finance subcommittee.
Yeah,
And
but
I
that-
think removing community members
Yeah, but
would be
See-
a really bad move.
this is what she told me. She told me that a lot of the school boards across the state are not doing what the statute says. And the statute says that they shouldn't be. And a lot of the finance committees across the state are not doing it, which they should be doing it, but they're not doing it because, and the legal notice is because most of them right now just have 2 members, and it's not a quorum. But what she said is under the legislative thing, the Attorney General has said that they do need to post it. And we can appoint probably more board members to the finance committee if we want to.
Right, but it does not exclude community members.
Yes, it does. They are not supposed to be on
I
that.
have the statute right in front of me, and it does not exclude.
Well, that's not what
And-
she told me that they cannot be on it because sometimes in the finance committee, names are brought out.
Is there any way we can get legal counsel, whether, whichever way it rolls? Oh,
Yeah, if you
sent it
can
to
forward that to us.
Huh?
If you could forward
Well,
that to us.
that's what she says back here, that I can't
You
forward it.
can't
You
forward
can't
it to the
forward?
board members?
No, that's what she says here, that is,
I think we need legal counsel.
well, that's what, she is a legal counsel.
I think we need a better one. But the thing about it is the legislation or the statute doesn't list a prohibition. For her to infer there's a prohibition, she's adding something to a statute that doesn't exist. It's not the first time she takes liberty with this kind of stuff. But we do have 2 community members in there. They've been serving a purpose. If we're gonna just say we don't need them there, and
No,
that's what we're gonna say.
I'm not saying we don't need them.
That's what you.
I'm saying that the law says they can't be.
It doesn't say that.
Yes, it does.
Well, as a board, we will make that decision who will be on.
We're violating law, and you two are always telling me that we.
I have it right here.
Yeah, but you two are always telling me that we need to follow the law, and that's what the statute says, that they
That's not
can't
what the
be.
statute says.
Yes, it says.
She's got the statute.
I have
Find
it
where it
right-
says they can't be there.
Yeah, but it doesn't say that, it says, she told me that they cannot be on there.
So can.
Well, as a school board, we can make that decision who is on the committee.
Yep.
Yeah, we can say who's on the committee, but it has to be board members. We can appoint board members.
We have to appoint board members, but
Yeah.
we have the luxury of adding community members.
No, not to the sub,
That's not prohibited.
not to the subcommittee, finance committee. We can add to the audit committee,
Oh, we're required to add to the audit committee.
That's specified there. It's
Yeah.
not specified or prohibited in the other for the finance committee.
Right, it's not excluded.
So what I'm asking, Mr. President, is there any way that we can reach out to him again and at least share it? So if that's the legal counsel's, that's our counsel's opinion, then those are the folks that are gonna be representing us in a court of law. So I definitely, I'm gonna respect counsel's opinion, but is there any way that you can get with her and see if she can share that legal option, that legal opinion with the board, so at least we're informed and we can make an informed decision versus, you know, if you could just ask her, that'd be great.
Never did it here.
And even if we have to do it in closed session, I don't know if maybe that's the reason why, but I mean.
I'll do a thing here that she told me not to do.
No, if she doesn't have to do it, I don't think, I'm just asking if we can re-engage her.
The district paid for it, it's the district.
Shall appoint at least 2 members, so that's the
Let
minimum.
me see.
At least 2.
Yeah, that's the minimum. And she said we could have more.
Yeah, you can have the whole board.
Right, so that's the minimum requirement.
You can have the whole
So,
board.
in a explanation to me, she said, the statute says the board shall appoint at least two members of the board, meaning that it could appoint more than 2 members, but that only board members could serve on that committee. In contrast, by statute, the audit committee is not a subcommittee of the board, but instead has both board members and non-board members.
Yes.
Those members are fixed and cannot be expanded. They are 2 board members, 1 volunteer member who is a parent of a student attending the school district, 1 volunteer member who has experience in accounting or financial matters, the superintendent and the school district business manager.
That's from the attorneys?
That's what I
Yeah.
have.
On the subcommittee, it says here, only board members can be,
That's what
can
she's
be
saying in the email.
on the committee.
And she's taking liberty to add on to a statute that doesn't specify that.
Unless
That's what she sent me.
she's referencing some sort of case law, but
The way that I got it is she said that it had changed recently because of all the complaints that have been going, that not, school board around the state are not complying with what they need to do, and with all the questions on budget and on who serves and who doesn't, that the Attorney General and everybody got together that this is a new thing.
So
And
did
she
the
said that-
Attorney General release a statement?
That's what, according to what she said, that's the way I understood it, at the Region 8 meeting.
The
I
attorney,
haven't talked to her after that.
the Attorney General's opinion weighs much greater than a legal opinion that we would get from anybody else. And that actually would be an addendum to the statute. This is not an addendum to the statute, and to interpret that to be guidance on the application of the statute is ill-conceived, because the only guidance that can come from that are either cases or the Attorney General's opinion.
Well, in my
I don't know.
opinion, I think,
But
but as much as we don't like it, we may not like the opinion of our attorney or our legal counsel. I mean, we may think that it's ill-conceived, but it's our legal counsel either way. So they're the ones that are gonna be representing us. If we go against counsel and something happens, there's a possibility they won't represent us in the court of law, so.
I called her the next day for some clarification on what she said on the thing, and that's what she wrote back. And I told her, I said, can you send me something in writing? And that's what she did.
Can you just ask her if she could?
Right here.
If she could just.
And it says right up here, Mr. Sepulveda reached out to me yesterday to follow up on my presentation at the Region 8 meeting on Monday evening. And I wanted a clarification on
Is
that.
she our attorney? She was the one that presented.
Yeah, Welch and
Mrs.
Gallegos.
Gallegos.
Yeah.
So Welsh and Gallegos are our district's attorney?
For some
That-
things.
For some things,
First, yeah.
Okay,
They're not the attorneys who represent the board, but they represented the district for other cases.
okay. Yeah, if you could just ask her if you could share that
I think
information
that
with
probably
us.
clear, if we can share it, at least we can look at it and say, okay, I don't like this, I don't agree.
I'll ask her if I can make copies of this to give to the board.
Or just
Okay.
email would
That'd be
work.
That would be good.
And if she says I can, I'll make copies and bring them to the next board meeting.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, I mean, we might not like the representation, we might not like their opinion, but we have to
Yeah.
honor it, we hired them for a reason, you know? That's my opinion.
But that's something that's gonna have to be on the agenda
Okay.
for this. And I will get with Joyce and Terry to work up an agenda for the meeting on Thursday.
Another item
Oh,
that
that's fine.
I would like to see on the agenda is the board's self-evaluation. Now that we have a full understanding that it isn't individual understanding, it is an assessment of our performance as a whole.
Well, that's something that I was gonna get with,
Part of the retreat?
yeah, for the retreat.
To be part of the retreat?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay, so let me just make sure that we.
Anything else for next agenda?
So, the next board meeting is April 11th.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see where we are with our, final budget, whether we bring it to that board meeting or whether we need to have a special board meeting. Because we'll barely be getting back from the budget conference on Saturday, so we may have to revise some things or change some things or change the figures or whatever, so, depending on what we get there, we'll see where we're at. Not sure.
And Mr. President, if it's okay, I'll be attending that board meeting virtually, because I'll be out of town in business, so.
So the, board agenda has the link on it.
Okay.
If you don't get it or whatever, just get with it.
Okay.
And the other part is the audit. Can we get an update on the audit?
That'll be until The only thing is that we have met with the auditor, and until it comes back from the state approved, that's the,
But when we meet, well,
It's more of the status of the audit, not the content.
yeah, we did meet with the auditor, when was it?
last Monday.
Last Monday.
La-
We were
last
supposed to
Monday.
meet today, but we canceled it because
Yeah,
of the posting.
because of the legal notice thing that we've gotta do.
Well, I understand, but for the legal notice for this coming meeting, we can get a status on, where we are with the submission review, not necessarily the content of the audit itself. Although, I don't think that's prohibited within board members.
Well,
Certainly not prohibited. It's not allowed for board,
It
I
is
mean,
because it's not allowed to be, I mean, he was very specific with us multiple times
Yeah.
at our meeting.
He said several times, what goes on in here stays in here.
Stays there is what he said.
Any other thing for next agenda? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned. It is
7:51.
7:51.
We need snacks.
Yeah, no kidding. Especially not having dinner.
I know.
No, but let me,
understand what I mean about sharing
let me
the
show, eh?